Hi, it's Colin Cowherd. I started The Volume to bring you some of the most authentic voices in sports. While you're here, make sure you hit subscribe. Thanks.
After the game on Saturday, I talked about how LeBron was obviously still injured because I could tell he didn't have that separation ability. A lot of what he was doing was bully ball under the basket, just using his strength, using his jump shot, a lot of savvy. It was a classic. It was an old man 56, which is what you would expect from an old man scoring 56. But it was very much an old man 56 from a player like LeBron, who's been a really good athlete this year, who has shown that he has not experienced that much of a decline up until this knee injury. But he showed some vertical pop in that game. He had that crazy reverse dunk where he went through the lane in the half court. Then he had on that Malik Monk steal. He had that awesome alley-oop. There was some weird vertical pop there. And I said that I thought it had something to do with him just getting caught up in the energy in the arena and the energy of the moment in that game against Golden State. And that appears to be true because whatever he put his knee through in that game led to him waking up this morning with, according to Dave McMenamin, significant soreness. So much so that this game, which was a winnable game that the Lakers needed for the sake of their attempt to stay in the play-in, he wasn't willing to play tonight. And so what that tells us is that this knee thing is significant, that he very much is hurt, which is something that I've been pointing out for a couple weeks now. And that is concerning on so many different levels because even if LeBron has had a conversation with his trainer, Mike Mancias, with the trainer for the Lakers, and they've done scans, and even if they come in and they say, hey, you're not going to be able to make it any worse, so you can play on it if you want, it still is a risk because of what it does to the rest of your body. When you have pain in your knee and you're playing through it, you compensate in every other part of your body, absorbing shock, which can lead to things like, any sort of non-contact injury. Anytime you're absorbing a lot more shock than you're used to on a different part of your body, the risk is concerning to me, especially when you factor in that this significant soreness that took him out of the game tonight was directly tied to his best effort in the last couple of weeks. In a playoff run, what LeBron did last night or 2 nights ago against Golden State is exactly what he's going to have to do every night in the postseason for this team to have a chance. So if that type of exertion is going to lead to swelling and pain to the point where he can't play, then he's not going to be available for a playoff run anyway. So this brings us back to what I've been saying since the beginning. At a certain point, read the writing on the wall. Understand the circumstance, understand the situation, and know that you are dealing with an injury here and that it's probably going to be something that hampers you from achieving your goals for this season anyway, and you have to factor in the risk that you're taking by pushing it on this front. This is not a complete waste of a season. You can always live to fight another day. After 2019, LeBron was dragged through the mud. He famously had that play. I can't even remember who it was, that small forward, the European small forward from the Knicks who blocked him on his game-winning shot. He looked really bad. He was bringing a glass of wine courtside. He looked like it was very much nearing the end in 2019. But he lived to fight another day. And the next season, he was, in my opinion, the MVP. I thought he got robbed. I don't think Giannis deserved it. I thought LeBron deserved the 2019 MVP. He also won, the 2020 MVP. He also won a finals MVP that year. He lived to fight another day. And the same thing can take place here. Yes, you're going to be older, but hopefully if you play your cards right this summer and you actually build the roster to your strengths and weaknesses, and if Anthony Davis can stay healthy, maybe it will be an easier season for you on a workload front. You can next season capitalize on the little victories from this season, finding Austin Reeves, finding Stanley Johnson. In a weird way, Rob Pelinka not cashing in the chips is an accidentally smart move because of the fact that this season is a lost cause. You still have those assets. Rebuild this summer, live to fight another day, LeBron. It's not worth risking this season when there's not a real achievable goal, in my opinion. So Frank comes out. So I talked a lot in the last game about how playing the young guys big minutes was such a huge deal for that team having the good start that they had, and just the general effort and focus and energy that they came out with, and that they were able to parlay into a big lead early on against the Warriors. And I talked about how Austin Reeves and Malik Monk were such a huge part of that. So then Frank Vogel comes out after the game and he says, quote, "I like the combination of Malik Monk and Austin Reeves out there together." Interesting. That's something that we had seen more in second units throughout the season, but it's been a combination that our analytics team has said has really produced. Those guys have some of our best on-off plus-minus stats, those types of things, and we decided a couple games ago to look at it in the starting lineup even though we hadn't won yet, which has got to be so incredibly frustrating for Laker fans to see, because it's not just an analytics thing, it's a basketball thing. You know, Darius Soriano from the LFR pod today was talking about how Austin Reeves and Malik Monk, even though they've been healthy all season, they've played less than 500 minutes together. That's how frustrating that is. Two of the Lakers' clear best players, obvious great off-ball threats to put alongside Russ and LeBron, simply have not been on the floor together enough to get the most out of this roster. Like I've said so many times this season, this Laker team cannot be distilled down to one flaw. I'm critical of Russ. It's not just Russ. I'm critical of the Russ trade. It's not just the Russ trade. I'm critical of Rob Pelinka. I'm critical of Jeannie Buss. I've been critical of LeBron's effort a lot, but it's not any one of those things. It's all of those things. And one of the big things has been Frank Vogel and his insistence on leaning on Avery Bradley and leaning on Trevor Ariza and DeAndre Jordan and Dwight Howard and all of the older players on this roster that never put in the requisite effort to actually get the most out of this team. And now, of all times, after all these games, Frank wants to start playing Stanley and Malik and Austin together, and we're starting to see some good results, which is great, but we continued tonight again to see a massive fall off when they went to the DJ Augustines and the Avery Bradleys. And a huge part of that is those are not functional basketball lineups. You can't win in the NBA, even against the San Antonio Spurs, if they're walking out with big NBA athletes and you're walking out with four tiny guards and Carmelo Anthony. It's just not a functional basketball lineup. You could put 5 Kyrie Irvings out there in their absolute primes, and they would have issues because they don't cross the boxes. Like I say, when it's a 5-man basketball lineup has a list of responsibilities, and your elite offensive players can check some of those responsibilities, but they can't check all of them. A lot of those responsibilities have to be filled by athletes, by guys that play with motor and with energy. They have to be played with by guys with physical tools. Those are the things that are going to fill those other boxes so that your elite offensive players can impact the game, which takes me to Wenyen Gabriel. You look out in the open market and you're able to find a discounted athletic forward who's 6'9", can jump out of the gym, has shown flashes of defensive potential, and can shoot the three, and he's sitting on the sideline completely unused. That's frustrating. That's the same thing as early in the season when we were watching the Lakers lose to the Oklahoma City Thunder while Austin Reeves was playing 12 minutes. That's the same situation at this point in the season dealing with Wenyen Gabriel, and that's frustrating. Because at the end of the day, even though this team doesn't have as much talent as they need to really make a run in the West, they definitely are better than the product that we've seen on the floor. And the reason why we haven't been able to see that product materialize has a lot to do with the fact that the Lakers' best players haven't been on the floor too much this season. And that's frustrating. That's on Frank. That's something, I saw a lot of Warriors fans talking after or during the first half of that game the other night on Saturday, especially when LeBron was kind of dogging it defensively. And I saw Warrior fans saying things like, I feel bad for Frank, that he has to try to make it work with this group. No. Don't feel bad for Frank. He signs up for this. Frank has options. Frank has had opportunity to be better than he has been, and he has willingly and purposefully decided not to be in the face of his analytics team. Imagine that every single day. He's watching the tape, the same tape that we're watching, seeing the same things that we're seeing the young guys succeed, while his analytics team is throwing numbers in his face. Austin Reeves and Malik Monk, when they've played together this season, are more than 10 points positive per 100 possessions. They are really good with those guys on the floor, and they always have been. And they haven't been utilized properly until this last recent stretch of games. That's frustrating. The Lakers have to figure out that they have to, at some point down the stretch, if they're going to be able to make any sort of noise, they have to be able to get those guys in the lineup. They have to get Wenyen Gabriel in the lineup. There has to be less of those older guys.